All right, now available for purchase is the log splitter, the new log splitter from Ryobi. It's a pretty neat little thing. Now, growing up, we always had hydraulic log splitters. They were, big, heavy, uh, loud, obviously, because they had gas, but they were also slow. Um, you pushed a little lever and it took several seconds to push the ram out to the log to be able to split on the splitter or the knife end. But anyway, $1,000 is the asking price, which, if you consider what Milwaukee charges for the lawnmower, this is really not that bad of a price. But there's no tool only option, and if you're in the 40-volt line, you have probably several batteries. So it'd be nice if they would give you the option to do only the log splitter. But I think we know why they don't do that, and it's so they can charge you a premium for the battery and charger. They give you the $40 charger, and then they charge you, and then there's the $150 or $160 battery. So that'd be $200 you could save off of this right off the bat. So instead of $9.99, it could be $7.99, and at that point becomes a great value. Now, for those of you who don't know how a kinetic splitter works, is there, on a gasoline one, and so I had to look at the internals on this, and you could take the covers off here and you could look. But usually there's a flywheel or two flywheels, and then has a gear or a pinion, and then the arm is driven by a gear or a rack, I would say. So sort of like how the old school steering wheels were. We had rack and pinion, where your steering wheel turned the pinion, which in turn turned the rack for the steering wheel. So when you start this up, and you press the button to run this, the flywheels start spinning, and usually they're weighted. They have some weight to them. Depending on how heavy duty you are, it could be anywhere from 50 pounds to 100 pounds. And as those are spinning, once they get up to speed, it runs pretty efficiently because it's using kinetic energy to continue running. So they're a lot more fuel efficient. And in this case, I guess the battery is used a lot more efficiently. The most energy used is getting the flywheel spinning. Whenever you pull the safety lever and then pull the engage lever, the rack either goes up or down depending on how it's designed to the pinion, and that's what pushes it out. Then when it's done, you can retract it. Now, if you run into something that's too heavy for this to split or too hard for it to split, there's usually a clutch on an engine. Again, I don't know about how this one is, but if it's an electric motor, it probably has a clutch just like a gasoline motor. So that way the clutch will start slipping so you don't, break anything or wear anything out. And then, whenever you hit the lever, it'll retract. So pretty efficient, slick design. That's why it's able to move a lot faster. Usually they turn at a certain RPMs. Some of them turn, 350 RPM. So, you're not, sort of like a clutch. Whenever you pull the handle, except because it's not spinning that fast, you don't really need a clutch. The rack and pinion grab each other, and then it forces the sledge out. So anyway, pretty interesting design. There's usually some springs that will retract. But again, with this being electric, I don't know if everything is electronically driven or if there's anything in here that's mechanical. But either way, this should be fairly interesting. And I would really like to see them come out with a tool only, to where if you have some of these batteries, or at least if they could have given you a high output or a high capacity 6 with this, I think that would have been a little bit more value. I think for $1,000, that would be very nice. And another thing I wish is at the table where the knife is, or at the end where the knife is, I wish they would have included some sort of table, because this thing has 12 tons of not cut capacity, but 12 tons force pushing out. And I think it said you could split 9-inch logs, but there's a way around cutting bigger logs. Obviously, you can start at the sides of some of these logs, and you can kind of cut it down to size where you can get it down to a smaller log where this thing can split. So you could cut a 12-inch diameter log, 6 times, and it'll be cut down to a size where this thing can manage. If you cut 4 sides and you start just basically cutting, just cutting sides instead of cutting it straight down the middle. So this thing does the capacity is there, the speed is there, and the convenience is there. That's for sure. But around this outfeed table, this outfeed area, it'd be nice if they included, or if there was a way to make some sort of place for the logs to fall on instead of falling on the ground. But I guess since you're already on the ground, might not be that big of a deal. But there's some other ones down here. I want to show one in particular, like this DK2 option. That is sort of like a table. Doesn't necessarily have to be that far out, but just around, the rail and right around the knife would be nice. So the logs fall on there. So that way you could pick one back up and split it again if you needed to without having to pick it up off the ground after it's been split. And I can see people making something like this win here. But price comparison wise, here we got the manual power, the manual extreme power. But I can see people doing like this win one here and making it on some sort of table. Just so that way, if you have other implements, so you have like a, smaller lawn tractor or something like that with a bucket on the front, and you can lift the logs up to where you are and grab them out of there and split them. And then maybe you have something underneath where it catches the logs. I'm sure people will come up with all kind of crazy stuff like that. So I don't imagine this is too heavy. But when you compare this to other log splitters that are electric, capacity-wise, the yard max here is 9 ton versus this one being 12 ton. But when you take out the cost of the battery, then it becomes a little more competitive cost-wise. And I appreciate everybody listening to my TED Talk about the kinetic log splitter. But anyway, I'll put the link below if you're interested in checking it out. There's no reviews yet. I'm sure there's plenty of reviews on YouTube. So I'd be interested to see how this thing works in the field and how this thing holds up long term. Definitely going to be great for the homeowner. Maybe you have a couple acres and you have a fireplace and you like to keep it warm, or you have a shop that you like to keep warm. I don't know if this is going to be suited for professional use. Say you sell cords of firewood or truck beds of firewood, or for a living, or even as a way to make side money. I don't know if this is going to hold up long term, something like that, but it'd be interesting to see. The kinetic is definitely the way to go, but I think something a little more heavy duty, maybe like this Champion here. Well, that's hydraulic though. Something a little more heavy duty is probably more what you're, like this one here, this 40 ton DK2. But anyway, I appreciate you hanging out for the TED Talk and my explanation about the log splitters. But I thought it was interesting about, because there's other people who don't know. I didn't really know either at first. I did a bunch of research, watched a couple videos about how they work in general. And now that I'm educated, I think it is a ingenious design that works a lot quicker than a hydraulic one does.